Who's the champ of foolish fame? Let's crown the buffoon of the week by name. Comic crown and a goofy streak. The title goes to our champ this week.
Ladies and gentlemen, and everybody else in between classes, now in session, welcome back to Buffoonology 101. Gene Berardelli and Ross Galloway is here. What gag do you have going now at my book?
No, I'm always last minute. I'm just doing a little last minute brushing up to prepare. Because what's the standings, Gene? I'm getting close, ain't I?
Wait. So no hidden pictures, no quip.
Page 105. I looked in a second book and it was not in the second book. So I don't know what happened the other day with that picture I found.
I'm very suspicious right now. But to remind everybody about where we stand, 2 weeks ago when we ran our last poll for Buffoon of the Week, Ross Galloway won with 60% of the vote with his choice. And I got under 40% because one viewer chose to do a write-in with Speaker Mike Johnson. That was a whole lot of fun. But every new week springs new hope for both me and Ross Galloway. And it's time to do the damn thing once again. We had a nice little tete-a-tete last week in readjusting some scores, which I felt was really good. I felt like that did a lot of good for the process.
Yeah, we got to come back every once in a while and tune that thing up. Because sometimes, I'll be honest about myself, I let my emotions get away from me sometimes in the heat of the moment. So it was good to relook at some of that stuff. Absolutely.
I totally agree. There are some times where I think you have the better. In fact, I think normally, that we were talking about this off air, I always think you're going to beat me. I always think that you have the better buffoon. You've been making good picks with the exception of one. And that will be he who we will not name any further because he did absolutely nothing to earn the nominee. But other than that, you've made a lot of great picks. You've taken to this like a fish to water, my friend. And
I'll just tell you, man, we're not stroking each other off here. Tonight's going to be a tough one, man, because you found your little niche, and people will see what I mean in a minute. Well played again, Mr. Berardelli. We shall see.
All right, listen. So we're being all nice and cordial now, but the fists are about to fly. The metaphorical fists are about to fly here on Buffoonology 101. Let's explain to the people how this is going to work in this competition between me and my best friend / mortal enemy as we compete for your votes in choosing this week's Buffoon of the Week. Before the show, Ross and I have each selected our nominee to present to you for Buffoon of the Week. Each host will have 5 minutes to make their case to you as to why their nominee should earn your vote. The first 2 minutes will be uninterrupted by the other host, but after that, it's a free-for-all between the two discussing the nomination. The opposing host will then evaluate the nominee based on the criteria set forth in my award-winning best-selling book, Schnooks, Crooks, Lies, and Scoundrels, a field guide to identifying political buffoons, available right now on Amazon, at Barnes & Noble, and other online bookstores.
This guy is a grifter!
The nominee will then be given a score for buffoonish nature and buffoonish action magnitude on our Sharpton Buffoonery Matrix, but more on that later. After that, we do it all over again for the other nominee. After all the nominees have been weighed and measured, each host will then have 1 minute to plead and beg for your vote for Buffoon of the Week. You'll get to vote online in the comments and on social media and at buffoonoftheweek.com. Vote early and vote often. No one's going to be counting whether you voted more than once. And now, back to the action. And that's how we do it round these parts in choosing the Buffoon of the Week. We institute our knowledge here at Buffoonology 101 and present it to you on the silver platter so that you can make your choice. Now, Mr. Galloway, you have control of the board because you won 2 weeks ago and we didn't have a vote last week. So, do you wish to go first or do you wish to go last?
I always like to control my own destiny. Give me the ball. I'm going first. All right. So I thought I was going to get some pushback from you, Gene, on the guy I'm about to pick. Tim Walz, former vice presidential candidate, current governor of the state of Minnesota. And I'm going to play off this clip. Start my first clip, please.
Called out on this because I called Donald Trump a wannabe dictator. It's because he is. It's because he is. Oh. The governor's being mean, and the governor's speaking out on that. Well, maybe it's time for us to be a little meaner. Maybe it's time for us to be a little more fierce. Because we have to ferociously push back on this. And again, I'll speak to my teacher colleagues in here. The thing that bothers a teacher more than anything is to watch a bully, to watch this bully and to stop it. And when it's a child, you talk to them and you tell them why bullying's wrong. But when it's adult like Donald Trump, you bully the shit out of him back. You push back. You make sure they know it's not there.
This guy's going to bully Trump, Gene. This guy's going to bully Trump. The most unmanliest man to ever run for vice president in our country is going to bully Trump. This guy puts the DP in SCDP or whatever the hell that thing he was standing behind on that podium. This guy's going to bully Trump. Go to my second clip, please, Mr. Berardelli.
I say this because I'm proud to say it looks like as of next Tuesday, I'm going to have a high school graduate with my son, Gus. And he's pretty in tune to this. But when he said this, he said, Dad, a lot of these young guys, especially, said they're not voting on the policy issues. And he wasn't dissing them. He said they may know the policy issues, but most of them don't. They're doing it because there's a sense of excitement, a sense of thrill in this. It's entertainment or whatever. We all dismiss that. Donald Trump's a clown. You know, Donald Trump's rallies are a clown. You know, this MMA fighting stuff and this, you know, and look, you start veering into the Andrew Tate stuff, which is dangerous misogyny and, you know, assault issues and all of that. But there's a peripheral side of that is not criminal, but is still going down the same road of saying you got a place to belong. And I think this is me just pontificating for what it's worth. Social media and other things have disconnected people more than they were. We were more connected in my generation. It was easier to be a kid when I was growing up. And I've always said this as a teacher, if you don't give a kid a place to belong, they'll go find one. So why you want them to be involved in sports and music and things in school, because they will go find a group of folks. And I think Donald Trump understands belonging, understand groups. I mean, you look at it. He gives them a uniform, the red hat. He gives them some chants, some talking points, whatever. It's not that all that different than when we build sports teams in high school. You belong, you're part of this. It's not so much the policies. I think it's incredibly dangerous, but I don't think we went out to get them. We didn't out to make them feel a part of this.
So Tim Walz is going to tell us why Trump won based on some nonsense his weirdo son told him. By the way, his son isn't voting on policies because his son is a libtard, okay? That's the reason why that's happening there. Uniforms, red hats, team sports. Trump is leading a populist political party, a movement. The Democrats divide on race, gender, sexuality, class, right? They're the dividers. Harris sealed her fate when she put that clown on the ticket, right? Don't forget, this guy allowed his state to burn during the riots of 2020. He was a veteran that claimed to be a sergeant major when he retired, and he wasn't. He retired as soon as his unit got activated to go overseas on a deployment. He lied and said he served in Afghanistan. He beat up his son on stage at the convention. His wife is batshit crazy. He went hunting to attract male voters, couldn't load his gun, said he was friends with school shooters, and then called himself a knucklehead, right? This guy's going to give us political advice. I win this week. Come on, people. I yield my time to you, Mr. Berardelli.
Okay, because we're still a little early. You sure?
I'm sure.
Okay. Well, listen, the kid bashing notwithstanding, I would never. Yeah, listen, this is a good pick. Kamala Harris and her team picked Tim Walz because he would be the code talker for men. And here they are, having lost an election, spending $20 million on consultants staying in cushy luxury hotels, trying to figure out still how to talk to men. When all they have to do is speak plainly, speak to kitchen to table issues, talk reasonably, and not be batshit crazy. Tim Walz is still batshit crazy from the campaign that we've seen. He's still a knucklehead. And this idea that he's going to be the bully in the conversation with Donald Trump, or that he thinks that Democrats should turn into bullies and that's a solution, you're not going to outflank Donald Trump when it comes to bombacity and being Donald Trump. It's just not going to happen.
And by the way, his kid is 18 years old, Gene. That's a grown man.
Fair
He's
point.
a weirdo.
Fair
Okay?
point.
I was in the
point.
Army at 18. I could throw a jab at a weirdo 18-year-old that thinks Donald Trump won because he's an entertainer, right? Not because of what we believe in. Not because Tim Walz wanted to put tampons in boys' bathrooms in high schools. That's not weird. Remember when they called J.D. Vance weird? Right? Remember when Tim Walz was running around saying that he's just weird?
By the way, you got to be a little bit of an entertainer to win in elections. You have to be relatable. You have to be able to be the guy that you can have a beer with at the bar or whatever, or talk to everybody where they are. Tim Walz proved he couldn't do that. He couldn't do the retail politicking. He couldn't load the gun for the hunting. He went on stream with AOC to play video games.
Oh, I forgot about that one. Thank you for helping me out with that. He pretended he used to play Madden. He had no idea what a pick six was.
You know what? Cue the clip of Steve Buscemi going to high school right here.
How do you do, fellow kids?
What?
There it is. Yeah, I mean, the guy is supposed to be the folksy, relatable Minnesotan governor, and meanwhile, he was crazier than the word salad serving vice president.
Right. He was supposedly a football coach, and he didn't know what a pick six was in football. Come on.
Yeah, and obviously the biggest thing was stolen valor for me, but all of this gets grandfathered in, by the way, because he did make that speech in South Kakalaki talking about getting meaner and to bully Donald Trump. How could Democrats get meaner? They're already going after every segmentation of the population that doesn't fit into those little neat boxes that they have.
And by the way, like most buffoons, he should fade off into the sunset, especially a losing vice presidential candidate. He's a loser. Why is he forcing himself upon us again? No one cares.
He's got delusions of grandeur. All right, so that takes care of your time, my friend. Now it's on me, pursuant to the rules, to assign scoring to this buffoon nominee. And to explain that to you, we have to go to our little presentation on our Sharpton Buffoonery Matrix, where, as those of you who are regulars know, it comes down to two things: the buns and the bams. Let's talk buns.
My buns!
No, not those. And definitely not those. I'm talking about our personal buffoonish nature. A decade of collective observations has shown that everyone, to some degree, has a bun. You, me, everybody. The size of their buns is directly related to a buffoon's propensity to do stupid things.
Look at the size of that thing.
And then there's bam, 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 buffoonish action magnitude. That's our measurement of how big a whoopsie a buffoon made. The bigger the mistake, the greater the magnitude. We then plug these values into our Sharpton Buffoonery Matrix, named for the alpha and omega of buffoonery, the Reverend Al Sharpton.
Modern problems require modern solutions,
which is our visual representation of a buffoon's bum to bam ratio. And here's the best part. After we tally up the worst offenders, you decide. You get to cast your vote, share your thoughts, and you determine who earns the dubious distinction of Buffoon of the Week, which we'll record as the weeks go by. So Ross presents an intriguing buffoon. A buffoon with a long recent history of stupidity, especially during the election cycle. And because of the high visibility, I think his buffoonish nature grew pretty quickly from, let's say, the Summer of Love in 2000, when riots were going on then, up until his selection as the vice presidential nominee in 2024. There was a rapid increase in 2024 that grew his buffoonish nature as it became known to the country. We knew more so throughout the election cycle, this guy's a fucking moron. And it just showed out through that cycle. So it's no surprise that he's lingering now with a couple of speeches and a couple of interviews, talking tough in the way that he was during the campaign and doing everything that basically led to the demise. Tim Walz is a failed social experiment by the Democrats. That's all he is. He was not chosen because of what he brings to the table. He was chosen because he was a white cisgender male. That's all he is. That's all he'll ever be to his side of the aisle. So I need to honor the bun. I need to honor his buns here. And that's not code talk for anything, by the way. He is definitely up there on the bun scale. And I'm going to put him in the mid-70s. I'm putting him right at 75. The BAM here, in comparison to some of his past actions, not so big. I'm sorry to say it's not Sharpton-esque. By the way, for those of you who don't know, Sharpton-esque is 1.21 gigasharptons and above. So we're below that metric, thanks to Dr. Emmett Brown for giving us that measure, by the way. Back to the Future, great movies. Kids, honor the classics. I'm going with 625 megasharptons. So below that demarcation line of Sharpton-esque. After all, this is the Sharpton scale. We base it all on him. But a good nominee nonetheless, a strong reminder that this lingering buffoon, and bless his heart, he doesn't know that what he doesn't know. This lingering buffoon is he's just that. He's hanging on for relevancy for dear life here. Good pick. Great pick.
Yeah, and I think it's fair, Gene. He was a DEI pick for VP. His body of work in a short amount of time, I think the buffoonish nature of 75 is fair. He probably should have faded away by now, but since he hasn't, that's why I think that score is warranted. And on the as far as the magnitude, you're right. For those of you watching, you probably realize by now I am more impressed with someone's staying power, over the long term than their little shot in the pan. So that's why my picks will usually be people that have longer track records.
And you know what? That's fair. I think that is a fair approach to Buffoonology. Some people look at the action magnitude to inform the bun. Others look the other way around. Their stature that has been established already leads to their lingering around like this guy here. So this is certainly becoming a battle of Buffoonology ideology. And I kind of love that.
I'm nervous here, man, because I know what's coming up with you.
All right, well, let's get to my nominee right now. So, Ross, everybody's out there hawking a book. Jake Tapper is hawking his book. I'm out there hawking my book, Schnooks, Crooks, Liars, and Scoundrels, a field guide to identifying political buffoons, which is available right now on Amazon, at Barnes & Noble, and other online bookstores.
This guy is a grifter.
And now, Karine Jean-Pierre, KJP, is hawking her book. The book grift is real this year. Because we're the year after a presidential election, it's the year of the book grift. We're seeing all the information that should have been coming out during the Biden administration as we were living through it. So while Jake Tapper had his offering of gaslighting the nation about the media's coddling of Joe Biden and carrying water for him because of his mental decline, his feeble mind, his feeble body, Karine Jean-Pierre is now grifting her book, which is called Independent, and she's going around saying that she is leaving the Democrat Party and is becoming an independent because she can't stand all of the misinformation and disinformation out there. This coming from a former White House press secretary for Joe Biden. I want to show you this clip that was created by Western Lensman on the Twitters, on X, comparing Karine Jean-Pierre's book announcement this week to what she was saying, some of what she was saying on the podium from the White House press room. Take a look at this.
How do we get out of this? How do we protect our democracy? And this is my answer. In an era of misinformation, disinformation, What I have decided to do, and I really have thought long and hard about this, is to follow my own compass.
Yeah, and I think you all have called this the cheap fakes video, and that's exactly what they are. They are cheap fakes video. They are done in bad faith, and some of your news organization have been very clear, have stressed that these the right-wing critics of the president have a credibility problem because of the fact checkers have repeatedly caught them pushing misinformation, disinformation, and so we see this, and this is something coming from your part of the world, calling them cheap fakes.
So what happened there? Karine Jean-Pierre just admitted that she's a sellout. She sold out for the money and the influence that the Biden campaign and the Biden White House had to offer. She's now offering her independent thinking about misinformation and disinformation when she was one of the mavens of misinformation and disinformation for 4 years. Don't believe me? Check out this clip of all the times Karine Jean-Pierre was out there in these streets covering for Joe Biden's mental decline.
Does the president have the stamina, physically and mentally, do you think, to continue on even after 2024?
Don, you're asking me this question. Oh my gosh, he's the president of the United States. You know, I can't even keep up with him. We just got back from New Mexico. We just got back from California. That is not a question that we should be even asking.
You said, Jackie, are you here? Where's Jackie? She must not be here.
No, I totally understand. I just explained she was on top of mind.
The book is suggesting the president tells aides he's tired.
But that's in the excerpt, right?
Yeah, and that's why there have been so few public events before 10 a.m.
I mean, that's a ridiculous assumption to make.
President Biden is the oldest president in U.S. history. Why does White House staff treat him like a baby?
No one treats the president of the United States, the commander-in-chief, like a baby.
So there's this book that says
that's ridiculous.
When staff
it's a ridiculous claim.
What's...
I would put the president's stamina, president's wisdom, ability to get this done on behalf of the American people against anyone.
I could have gone on. There was another minute and a half to that clip, but I think you guys get my point. Karine Jean-Pierre is not only a sellout, she's a liar. And her veracity was up for sale. And if you thought that Jake Tapper's book was gaslighting, KJP just said, hold my beer. Although I don't even know if she drinks beer. It's going to hold my Chardonnay or whatever. You can jump in any time here, pal, because...
All right. Let me jump in here. So first of all, I just want to start with, you did ask me before the show not to point out that she's another woman of color, so I'm not going to go there. But well played, Gene. Jake Tapper was CNN fake news, hawking a book, total hypocrite. KJP was an MSNBC talking head, press secretary / propagandist for the worst administration in history, also hawking a book. And I'll say the book grift is so strong nowadays that Gene even used about 20 seconds of his time tonight to hawk his book, which was unbelievable. And I want to say this about KJP, Gene, because this is, she said she thought long and hard about this decision, to leave the party and write this book. The administration just ended like 4 months ago, and she pumped out a book and thought long and hard. She must have been doing this during the Biden presidency. There's no other way that this could have happened this quick.
Are we sure she even wrote it? Because ghostwriters are a real thing.
Or that, right? Or that.
You know what? It's been a bad week for former Democratic White House spokespeople. We got Jen Psaki's ratings are down almost 50% since she took over her show from her predecessor on MSDNC. And now KJP doing her Jake Tapper impression with this book. She's doing it smartly, though, because the book doesn't come out until like October. So there'll be another flame up of gaslighting then for everyone from this whole situation. But my good, you want to talk about just the ultimate gaslight. This is worse than Jake Tapper, and Jake Tapper won Buffoon of the Week because of the gaslighting in his book.
As implausible as this is, Jake Tapper has some plausible deniability because he couldn't be with President Biden and see him on a daily basis to say he was in decline.
But you know what?
Clearly had to know.
But you know what? She's doing worse than that because now she's offering her solution to misinformation and disinformation. She's even more of a cocky duty poopy head than you are, Galloway. That's why KJP needs to be this week's buffoon of the week. And frankly, there really is no choice other than her.
Gene, you clearly have a type. So yeah. And I mean, like,
God
I mean people
damn
writing
it.
books and being hypocrites. See,
All right.
You immediately went somewhere else with it. I'm not going there. I told you I wouldn't. Man, Gene, great pick, brother. Great pick. It's funny because when we were talking earlier, I saw her pop on the news, and I was about to text you and say I'm going to claim it, but you did good.
I was quicker on the draw this week.
Oh man, you were quick on the draw. Buffoonish nature. I seem to remember her a little longer back than you do from her MSNBC days. So she has some staying power too, right? So, and then being on television nearly, several times a week doing the White House press briefings, which I watched many of them for the entertainment value of Peter Doocy and the questions there. She has some staying power, man. That buffoonish nature number, I gotta put her like pretty high in the pack, and I'm gonna edge out someone we voted on in the past, Elizabeth Warren. I'm gonna give your nominee a 75.1. I think this might be the first time we used a decimal, but I got just, and don't round down. Let's see if we can fit that on the scoreboard, a 75.1. And by the way, I'm gonna reserve the right to make sure that we have the opportunity to upgrade that in the future if what's in that book is juicy. What was the title that you read earlier to me off the air?
Something about a view of a broken White House outside the party lines. The title of the book is Independent, by the way. Yeah. I don't know when she was outside the party lines in that White House, but whatever.
So that's what I'm saying. We might have to revisit her once that book comes out in October.
Oh, the title is a gaslight. The title is a gaslight for sure.
All right, for magnitude, she's definitely Sharpton-esque, right? Like this is ballsy to do. And clearly, by the way, there is no honor among thieves. Like they didn't even wait for for Joe Biden to get in the ground before they all just start piling on him. This is kind of crazy. I'm going 50 gig of Sharptons, even 50.
Ooh, I like it.
Very Sharpton-esque here.
Bigger than Tapper.
Bigger than Tapper, Gene, because Tapper, like I said, he can masquerade as a fake journalist. This one supposedly met with Biden on a daily basis and was his spokesperson, and now she's going to tell us about a broken White House as an independent? 4 months after the guy leaves office, 5 months after the guy leaves office, wrote a book in the interim? Get out of here.
It's a doozy. I definitely agree with that. I appreciate the fair scoring on this. It's definitely a doozy. She's independent, announced independent for like a day, and her book is about outside the party view or whatever it is.
From inside the White House.
From inside the White House.
Unreal.
And now that we've given you our presentations and our scoring, it's time for our 1 minute pleas to you. This is the point of the show where we beg, plead, and sometimes even bribe you for your vote for Buffoon of the Week going towards our nominee. Ross, you are in control of the board. You have chosen to go first. I will start the clock when you start speaking.
I don't even think we need the clock, Gene. I don't need a whole lot of time for this. I mean, you keep picking these book grifting hypocrites to be your nominee. You're just as bad as these people, to be honest. Every show you do the same. You're doing it now while I'm speaking, right? A book grifting hypocrite. And you know what? Now that you did that, I'm actually going to say it. He does have a type. I'm not going to allow him to keep putting women of color on our show and making them the buffoon of the week. I'm just not going to do it. You got to vote for Tampon Tim Walz this time around, right? The guy's talking about bullying Trump. The guy's a clown, a joke, a true buffoon. And that's all the time I need, Gene. Go to your book, hawk it all you want. You know what? I might nominate Gene next week if you don't make me win this week.
Okay, your turn.
Ross, I value our friendship above anything else we do on this channel. I truly do. We've been friends for so long, ever since you ended up on my front porch sleeping there in some drunken stupor. And I put a saucer of milk there out for you, and you've been following me ever since. I'm going to extend my hand and offer one time. Do you concede?
Negative. Never.
Well, then I'm sorry I have to do this. There is no choice here, ladies and gentlemen, and everybody in between. Karine Jean-Pierre is Jake Tapper on steroids, and you came out so strong for Jake Tapper and his gaslighting. Jake Tapper only reported on misinformation and disinformation, or should I say he didn't report on it. Karine Jean-Pierre created the misinformation and disinformation that Jake Tapper failed to report on. She is your choice for Buffoon of the Week, point blank and period. There it is. I tried to give you a shot, pal. I tried to, you know, remember that? Do you remember that movie, Searching for Bobby Fischer? And the little kid offers the other little kid to draw because he knows he's about to crush him. It's kind of how I feel right now.
Oh man, excellent pick, Gene. Excellent pick.
I appreciate that. But with all of that, the votes and the polling is now open. You can vote on YouTube in our community section. You can vote on X under my screen name at Berardelli. It'll be pinned to my profile. And you can also vote at buffoonoftheweek.com. And we do mean vote early and vote often. We don't limit you to the amount of times you can vote. Other places may limit you, like YouTube or X or whatever else we put the polling, but you will not be limited on buffoonoftheweek.com. I think that's important to point out to the crowd here.
And speaking of important things, Gene, I don't know if you've told our audience yet that you wrote a book.
You know, I really should have mentioned it. I really should have mentioned it a couple more times here during the show. You know, I'll do better at promoting myself next time.